Welcome back to Sims Complete. I'm your host, Matt Sims, alongside the GOAT, Phill Sims. We got a special guest here today, though. We got Greg Nejmeh, the urban legend, the New Jersey great, I don't know. I couldn't think of any more nicknames for
Don't forget Hall of Famer.
Hall of
Famer. Don't forget Hall of Famer.
That is in my notes here. I didn't want to bring it up too early, but Greg Nejmeh, who is gracious enough to join us here today, director of pro personnel, been with the Jets now. As you know, I thought I knew you, so I did like a little homework, obviously, before we started doing this. 16th year going in, right, in the Jets personnel department. I mean, has time gone that fast, or has it been excruciatingly slow for you?
When I think about 16 years, like, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. It really doesn't. Like, right. I still remember the day that I got hired as a training camp intern. So that doesn't seem that long. And then when I start to think about each season that's gone by, right. that's when I start to feel it a little bit. Yeah. But no, it's been awesome. I'm fortunate enough to not have had to move my family or anything yet, but still be with a bunch of different coaches and GMs and learn a bunch of different things. So that side of it's been really cool to have that stability.
Nedge, here you are. We finally got you on. You're a hard get, man. It's like trying to get Aaron Rodgers. Can't get him on things. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Nedge he's one of the guests that actually he asked to come on our show. We usually ask people. He asked to come on our show. Yeah. So we appreciate that, Nedge.
Yeah, we got a lot of them lined up now. But Nedge, how about this? Doing this, you got to be a pro. So what would you say to Matt? Have you ever heard of sunscreen, son?
I know, really.
I mean, come on.
He's trying to be as tan as I am. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, it's not part of my DNA, man. It really isn't. You're tan. You said that before we went on, you were saying that this is your base coat that you have before you get to the actual camp season. So I can only imagine what you like after camp.
I'm getting ready for camp right now.
That's right. Matt, first and foremost, the number one thing about Nedge, Greg Nedge, but we call him Nedge. How's the arm?
It's good. It's good. I don't throw at the workouts or practice anymore. I feel like anything 15 and in, I'm good, Okay. But I don't really want to press it too much after that.
You don't throw for any of the workouts anymore?
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
When did you finally relieve yourself of that duty of being the workout thrower?
I would say probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
It's been that long.
Yeah,
wow.
I was like, no, I have to really pay attention to this workout now, is what I told people. But the reality was it just hurt me so much to do it. Yeah. And I felt it starting to go, and I was like, I'm not exposing myself anymore. So
that's right.
I just like, no, I gotta sit back and watch this workout.
Hey, so Matt, I don't know. It would seem like just maybe 2 years ago that you sent me, when he throws for the workouts, he films himself.
Yeah.
And he sends it to me. How does it look? And I would make corrections and tell him what he did right, wrong. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I think you're right," or whatever.
Listen, if I'm throwing, I'm gonna have somebody take a little video of me just so I can see how it looks.
Yeah, that's what's interesting too, because I would say that the videos that I received from you, Greg, in the past 2 or 3 years have more so been like down the shore, and you're throwing to somebody driving across on a jet ski. Yeah. So those are the reps that I get, Phill. I don't get the actual. Team reps. I get the party reps.
Well, listen, I wanted the best coaching to go to your dad.
That hurts, man.
Well, listen, just for everybody. So, what was the first year you lived by us, or you grew up by us in Midland Park? We're in Franklin Lakes, not far at all. How old were you when you came over for the first time to throw?
I think I was going into my junior year, so in between my sophomore and junior year of high school.
Okay.
I think we went over to Ramapo and threw once.
Right.
And then from there we kind of kept going a little bit that year, and then did it even more going into my senior year. And that was really, the second year was really when I felt like a huge difference in what we were working on and everything, but yeah, it was, look, I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame without you guys.
And I will say this. Well, just for a quick background too, for everyone listening right now, because we're all thick as thieves as far as how far we go back with the game of football and all the stories that we can share with each other. But for the general fans out there, Greg Nejmeh was the starting quarterback for the Midland Park Panthers. 3-year starter.
Yeah.
3-year starter. He is in as he's already told us multiple times here, only 5 minutes into the show, that he is in the Midland Park Hall of Fame. And he is also the leading passer. Well, really, basically, you hold all the passing records in the school's history, which is fantastic. Yeah. Phill, hang up that damn phone.
Damn, that's every damn podcast.
Every damn thing.
That was the best intro I've ever had, too.
Yeah, I know. Right? He was really feeling it. He was like, you could just see it.
Oh, I love it.
And Big Phil's the only guy that actually still uses a house phone and a landline. But good for you, Phill. Okay. And, but for Nejmeh, we got introduced. We were throwing together as well. I was a young kid in high school at the time while you were, going more into your senior years and obviously on to college. Played quarterback at the College of New Jersey. Yeah. And then transitioned from there into the coaching world. Your junior or senior year is when you started to get into that stuff.
Yeah, my junior year of college, after my junior year of college, I was fortunate enough to be an undergraduate, but still coach, and I coached quarterbacks. And even though I was done playing, like, all the stuff that I learned throwing with you guys was stuff that I started coaching and teaching. And, that was really how I was like, you know what, like, I didn't know at the time exactly what I wanted to do, but that was really when I was like, I want to do something with sports in some way. I didn't know if I wanted to coach or get into personnel and all that sort of stuff. And I coached there at TCNJ for 2 years as a quarterback coach. And then after I graduated, I got hired as a training camp intern here with the Jets. And it was crazy how it all worked out,
You were calling plays, right?
A little bit. Yeah. Only some games. I'll get you those games where we scored a lot of points.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think I talked to you once or maybe twice your last year, and you said, I called the plays this past week. Yeah. And I said, hell, you're the backup quarterback and the play caller.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It really was. It was a great opportunity. It was, for that staff to kind of like entrust that in me and give me that opportunity was like, I didn't know it at the time, but it really was like a life-changing thing, for me to realize how passionate I was about it, even though I was done playing. Like, this is what I want to do with my life in some way, and I wouldn't be with the Jets if it wasn't for TCNJ. There was a lot of people at the time that had connections to people in the Jets front office. And that was really kind of how I got the interview here, it was a life-changing thing. It was really cool.
That's great too. And I love it because, I'm sure your coaches too, they weren't sure if you were 21 years old or if you were 45 years old. Yeah. Because even when I first met you back in high school, back in the day, you were what we would call a grown-ass man already,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So your coach's like, yeah, sure. He's probably got a doctorate by this time.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was shaving in 4th grade, so like,
Well, wait. So you got to tell the quick story. Yeah. If you remember, I
know. Yeah.
You know the story. So
with the rim.
Yes. It's pretty good.
So 8th grade, I was in an all-star game at the Meadowlands for basketball, and there's a picture of me. I really want to find it, but I was able to touch, like, literally pull the rim down in 8th grade. I couldn't dunk, and I tell people I'm 5'10". That's really not accurate, but so that was 8th grade. By 9th grade, I could barely touch the net. Like, I don't know what happened in that 1 year, but that was like the pinnacle of my physical ability with basketball. So that was when I focused on throwing football.
So you went from touching the rim in the 8th grade to barely getting the net in the 9th. Yep. So that means your mom was a really good cook.
Yeah, exactly. And the height stopped.
That's a nice way to say it. Yeah.
The height stopped there, and everything else kept growing. So.
Oh, that's great. So, too, there's so many things to talk about and whatever, but one I'll bring up real quick, and I know you follow kind of like we do, Matt and I, of course, during the off season in football, we have all the time we want. We don't have like jobs like you have to do, but the quarterbacks, to have 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round this year. Yeah. I'm sure even though you guys were not in the, wanting to draft a quarterback high or anything like that, just give us your thoughts. Was it one of the best classes you've ever seen, or is it? Where does it fall?
I think it was a strong class overall. I think the interesting thing about it was each of the quarterbacks really was a different flavor, a different type of talent, a different scheme fit. And, I think that was one of the reasons why that many went in the first round, because there was a lot of different fits for certain coaches that liked a certain skill set and that sort of stuff. So I think it was probably one of the more like versatile classes in terms of different skill sets and everything, you know, because yeah, the talent is what it is, but at the end of the day, like the coach and the play call, like they have to believe that that guy's going to be a great fit in their scheme. And I think you saw that with a lot of the guys that ended up going in the first round, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I think it was a really good class. I think it was deep, you know, throughout really. And I was a little surprised that 6 went in the first round, but you know, when you think about it and you think about, okay, that's a great fit there, that's a great fit there, it makes sense. It really does.
Well, I think the two, one, Bo Nix was last. Of course, I thought always thought he was the perfect fit for Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other one, Michael Penix, that Atlanta saw him work out and went, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so those two, maybe this probably surprises, if you want to call it that. And I think that's the reason why.
Yeah.
One was a fit. The other one just blew him away with pure talent of throwing the football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of talented throwers.
Yeah.
And when you were going through the process too, of course, yeah, it's not, you're not heavy in the quarterback market for the draft, but you're doing your due diligence, and you never know what happens, especially in your line of work of being a pro personnel director, that, you know, these guys cycle through the system and you got to be ready and know kind of where you started at with your evaluation and kind of how they progress through their NFL careers. You know, who really jumped off the page to you when you were doing this review process of these young quarterbacks that came out this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you always have to, whether you're in the market or not, you always have to watch quarterbacks, because each year you have to be able to compare one guy to the next. And,
right,
you know, whether it's a comp in terms of how they remind you of how they play or just what you think the value is and that sort of stuff. So, like, I think it's important to do that work every year, whether you're in the market or not, really. But, you know, I thought that, like, the two guys that went at the top of the draft, they just in terms of physical talent, like they were really unique, you know, in terms of their, you know, not just their athletic ability, their ability to throw, their ability to make plays, like the combination of what both of those guys had. And they're actually, when you really study them, they're actually very different in how they play and how they make plays, but they're rare, like ability to throw the football, ability to make plays both from the pocket and off schedule. And then their athletic ability, like I think the athletic ability is such an important aspect in the NFL today. And both of them have it. Like, you know, Jaden Daniels is obviously, you know, explosive and can run and is fast. And Caleb is really elusive and can extend plays, but doesn't, you know, he may make more plays throwing the football, and he kind of moves around to throw the ball downfield. And Jaden can do both, but they're just really effective at it. I was really impressed watching both of those guys in terms of their physical ability. You know, I thought the rest of the guys that went, like, you know, it didn't shock me where any of them went in terms of what their talent was, you know, between, you know, Drake and Penix and Bo Nix and all, you know, all the guys that ended up going. Those two to me kind of stood out as like they were a unique level in terms of their physical ability.
Yeah, I'm always kind of interested to see after that first group of people go, you know, the draft now, it's either you're going to be drafted high or you got to sit at home and wait, because there's going to be a big gap there. And I was always wondering, you know, which guys are going to go, where was Joe Milton going to go?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys, you know, you picked up a quarterback in, I think, the 5th round, right?
5th, yeah.
And,
we took Jordan Travis, who you know we're obviously really excited about. He, you know, he's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of ability. He's a phenomenal person, and you know what he did with the Florida State program, I think, you know, speaks volumes to him and his character. And you know, we spent a lot of time with him, and we just, you know, we felt like there's so much there to work with him, and it's a great room to bring him in. Obviously, with Aaron and Tyrod and, you know, those guys and the coaching that he'll get here. So yeah, we were really excited about him. You know, like I said, there was depth throughout. You mentioned a couple of the guys. You know, there was guys that went in those 5th, 6th, 7th rounds that were still really good players. But yeah, Jordan was a guy that, you know, that we kind of had targeted. We thought would be a really good fit for us, a really good fit for the room.
Yeah, just real quick, just how is he doing? You know, I said this to Matt. If Jordan Travis, I watched him and studied him too, but I said, man, if he'd stayed healthy, I think they could have won the national championship.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's what he did for that program. Like you saw it with when he came out of the lineup and that sort of stuff. So, you know, he's working really hard in terms of his, you know, where he's at with his rehab and all that sort of stuff, you know, and he's wired the right way. I mean, he's got a lot of presence to him, and he works his ass off. And we're really excited about how he can develop in this program.
And you said something I think that is so important too. I mean, honestly, just being in that room with Tyrod Taylor, with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, talk about two pros that have been doing it a very long time at a very high level. I mean, it's just going to be an outstanding experience for him and just like with you talking about with Big Phill and just the throwing aspect of from year 1 to year 2, I think you're going to see a huge jump for him individually. I just want to go back really quickly with the draft. Something that Big Phill and I discussed multiple times throughout this draft process was, the JJ McCarthy hype, kind of how it built up as the draft process went along. And, we always kind of came back to that same discussion of we thought that the focus of the team wasn't necessarily around him as like the pure drop back passer like some of the other guys. And that's why we valued those guys maybe a little bit more. Yeah. When you're going through that evaluation process, he's coached by a former pro football coach. They have a great program. They know what they're doing. Does his lack of just drop back and throwing it and have the team on his back consistently come up in discussions in your draft rooms when you're looking at the players?
Yeah, I think it does come up. I think the way I look at it at least is and this is honestly one thing that I remember we've talked about before, it's sometimes harder to play that way. Your margin for error, if you're throwing it 20, 25 times a game, is much smaller than somebody who's throwing it 45, 50 times a game.
Right.
So certain things will get magnified if you miss a throw or you throw an interception or whatever the case is. So, I think it kind of cuts both ways, really. They obviously, they won the national championship. So they had a great formula for how they wanted to have success. And, he was still a really big part of that, regardless of how many times he threw it. So,
right.
But yeah, I think there's some guys that throw the ball 40, 50 times a game and they'll miss 3, 4, 5 throws or throw an interception or 2, but they'll make all these other throws that catch your attention. It's just a much smaller sample size. So I think guys like that, it tends to get magnified a little bit when they miss a throw or 2.
Yeah, not to really get into it too much, but J.J. McCarthy, there was 2 games. I can't remember. One of them was Iowa, maybe in the championship game.
Yeah.
But they threw the ball to win.
Yeah.
And I remember watching both games just writing, where he got a high number of throws and he really played well. And that kind of changed a lot of thoughts I had on him, when I saw those. So,
yeah, for sure.
But you're right. I always said this about Dan Marino, playing against him, watching him play. He could miss plays and he'd look at the side like, oh, that's a stupid call. Tell him to catch or whatever. It's, Dan never lost that I'm invincible feeling on the field because he knew what are they going to do the next play? They're going to throw it again.
Right.
And, so if he was out of rhythm, he just keeps throwing until he got back in rhythm. And it's, I really do believe that's almost easier, like you said, way to play quarterback than the other way, which you explained very well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, now this offseason, big moves for you, and really, a big offseason for you personally, right? Being a part of that personnel department and going through the free agency process as a team. I think we're all kind of seeing too behind the curtain a little bit with Hard Knocks and the Giants and Joe Shane, what they're going through, and I'm sure obviously you guys are doing that exact same thing. Top of the list for you, was it offensive line and making sure that you solidified that situation right away this offseason with the Tyron Smiths, with the Morgan Moses? So, was that the number one thing on the docket for you guys as you approach this offseason?
Yeah, I think we talked about okay, everyone has their needs and that sort of stuff. And what do you want to come out of free agency looking like? What do you want to come out of the draft looking like? And offensive line was, for us to give, protect Aaron as much as we can and give him as much time, give Brees, an opportunity to, you saw what he did last year. And we dealt with a lot of injuries across the offensive line last year. But yeah, we felt like if we can really shore that up, we'll have a really good balanced attack and, more opportunities for Garrett and our other receivers and Brees and Aaron. And so, yeah, getting Tyron and Morgan were 2 huge moves for us. We added John Simpson to be our guard, who we're really excited about as well. And then, we drafted Olu in the first round. In our mind, you can't have enough depth. You can't have enough guys that, that can play. He's going to be a hell of a player. And another one that's coming into a great room where he's got Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses that he can sit there and soak up all this knowledge from. So, it gave us a lot of flexibility. And, we felt like for our team, getting our defensive line is obviously a really strong one. We wanted to try to have our offensive line, match them in terms of being a strength, and really have those things be, what we can kind of hang our hat on a lot of time.
Man, the New York teams, the Giants and Jets, they were in the offensive line market, that's for sure. And, listen, I watched them all, and I think both teams, I think they're home runs. I really do. You guys, when you look at your offensive line, if Morgan Moses comes through, that will kind of change your team a little bit, right, on the right tackle?
Yeah. Morgan, we had Morgan here a couple of years ago. He was awesome. He's right. He's a hell of a player, a hell of a leader. And so getting him back was huge for us. And, Elijah Vera Tucker, who we think the world of now, can, we've moved him around a bunch now, hopefully he can settle in at guard and really solidify the interior. With Joe Tippmann, who we thought had a really good rookie year for us last year. Right. Like I said, signed John Simpson, Tyron Smith. And, it allowed us to have flexibility, and allowed us to, to really feel like, all right, we got some guys that have played at a high level. And it's such an important position because there's not many of them that go around, especially when you get into the season. Right. And so having as much depth and as much versatility as we can, was really important for us.
See if I'm saying it right. Olu Fashanu?
Yep, you got it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there were some tough names in the draft this past year. But I wrote some things down. He's a prototype looking, that's for sure. And he's going to grow in and be a bigger man than he is right now, it looks like. But a really good athlete. I think that was the one thing. Man, he can run. We're talking about he was 6'6", 312. Yeah. I mean, like, damn, Matt, he's running around like thinks he's a tight end. Running it. It's amazing the ability of so many of these big guys athletically, and he's one. And he was a 2-year starter. Just give us a quick thumbnail sketch on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's in terms of natural, like, left tackle pass protectors, like, he is so natural at it. He can bend, he can anchor, he's really strong. In the run game, the way they kind of ask him to play is a little different than some other teams, but he has that ability, especially when you see enough flashes of it with him. And he's extremely smart. He loves football, and he's wired the right way. So for us, that was really important, especially along the offensive line. You bring in a guy like Tyron and a guy like Morgan, who they know how to play. Like, this guy's going to just latch on to them, really. And he's a really talented player. We're really excited to get him. And he was one of those guys who probably, for whatever reason, leading up to the draft wasn't talked about a ton. I think he's just so steady and so consistent that there's not a whole lot to discuss on him sometimes. So we're really excited about him.
And then the other thing that really, has popped up, at least as we've watched Hard Knocks this offseason, was really the disappointment for, Joe Shane and those guys, and not getting Tyrod Taylor back, someone that they thought very highly of. They were really excited about him. They thought he was a great backup quarterback and someone that can win them a lot of games. Where was Tyrod as far as that list goes for high priority quarterbacks that you were looking at that offseason? And how excited were you guys that you landed such a steadfast football player for that quarterback room?
Yeah, I mean, I've had so much respect for Tyrod and his career over the years, like, just following him throughout. Everywhere he's gone, he's played well. He's given his team a chance to win. And he's such a all the work we did on him, like, he's such a great teammate and works so hard. It was such a great fit for us. So, for us, it was offensive line, and then really getting a guy that, if we needed to ever play with our backup quarterback again, we feel like with our defense and our offensive line, we can do that, and we can still give ourselves a chance to win a lot of games. So we were really excited about getting Tyrod.
Nothing like having a backup quarterback who's not going to create waves and knows how to be a backup and all that. That's Tyrod. Hey, real quick, just Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky. Very impressed watching him. At first, I was like, oh, let me see. And as I watched all the catches and the runs and the toughness and the size, I mean, man, he's made for the NFL.
Yeah, he's a tank. I mean, he just runs through people.
He's a tank. Not often you hear that about receivers.
He hates being tackled, and he was a guy that, like, when you watch them, they just try to get him the ball because obviously he's the best player on their team, and he made so many plays for them. And you watch him against Ohio State even, and he still made plays. So even though it was a lower level competition when he went against those guys, he still did a really good job. And we felt like with him and Garrett, signing Mike Williams, we have Alan Lazar. That was a really good mix of guys, and he's different than any other guy that we have. And really could be another type of guy. You just try to get him the ball and let his talent take over, and he can develop and continue to develop like more of his nuanced receiving skills as he develops. But in the meantime, there's a clear role for him.
And when I see him, the comp that I see is kind of like a Deebo Samuel-like football player. Who was your NFL comp as you were watching his film?
Yeah, I think that was a fair one. Deebo's a hell of a player, so I don't want to necessarily say
no, I know it's a lot.
But no, in terms of the skill set, they get the ball in space, they have great vision, they can run through tacklers, they get hard yards and all that sort of stuff. And they're really competitive and they make contested catches and all that. The role that Deebo's carved out for himself is such an important one for them. It was very similar how Western Kentucky used Malachi too. So, I do think that's a fair, at least in terms of how they were used and how you hopefully see him progressing.
5'11", 215 is a pretty stocky wide receiver, Matt.
Yeah,
and
sounds like Greg Nejmeh's freshman year.
That's what I was listed at in high school.
In high school, you're listed at 5'11".
Somewhere that was coming back.
Somehow the pro personnel guy who was better at cheating, his height, as far as records goes. Now he's making sure he's checking everybody's height.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I don't.
So,
excuse me.
So Greg, year 16. 5 years now, or your 5th year, excuse me, as the director of pro personnel. How much through the years has your view changed or your process changed with how you evaluate players or how you go about, searching for new players through every draft or every free agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, I try to look at it every year, really. And I say, all right, the guys that I liked, how did they do? Whether it be in the draft or whether it be free agency. And are there parts of it that I maybe missed on? Not just with our own guys that we've acquired, but anyone around the league. And part of it is your process, how you scout, when you have these meetings, when you have these discussions. So that's some of it. But really, it's constantly knowing the league as well, because the league's ever evolving. And so your way of evaluating, you're just looking at these trades and this sort of stuff. If each year, things are evolving and changing around the league. So I think you have to move along with it too. And so every year I try to look at it and I try to just take a step back and say, all right, the guys that I've watched, that I've liked, how have they done? Was I wrong about certain aspects of them? Does this certain player have more value than I initially thought because of how teams are using guys now and everything? And that's on both sides of the ball, offense, defense. There's new roles and new types of players that are being used every year, really. So I evaluate it all the time. I constantly tweak, even just simple things, how I take notes, when I watch guys, how I pick certain games.
Let's talk about that real quick. I don't want to cut you off, but just what, let's just say that you are looking at, the best offensive linemen that are coming out of the draft. Do you immediately say, all right, who are the top ranked opponents that they played against and go against that? Are you looking for specific matchups or more so just team and, that dynamic more?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. You always want to watch best competition. So whatever pass rushers or other highly regarded defensive linemen that they go against, that's a great barometer to try to measure guys against. So that's one. But I also like watching guys at different points of the year, how they've progressed or how they've dealt with certain things, or maybe even a game that they were either up in a lot or down in a lot, and see how they react, see what their what their competitiveness is like in those situations and all that sort of stuff. So, you watch, you normally get a pretty good idea after you watch, say, 3-4 games of a guy, but you continue to watch more just because it gives you more of a window into the player, and into how they compete and how they match up. So I always try to get the first 4 or 5 games done out of the way. And then I pick and choose a couple here and there. And then I'll even go back and watch 1 or 2 that I hadn't watched, and just, if it continues to verify everything that you've seen, great. But the more you don't want to get too lost in it, right? You want to have your opinion and your thought on things. So you don't want to lose your clarity when you're evaluating players. Right. But it's the more that you can watch, the more that it allows you to to be able to have a greater perspective on what that player's entire season looked like.
And just to follow up really quickly, big guy, I apologize.
That's all right.
Just,
no.
Will you discuss, because I know you and I, right, when I was with the Jets, we had great discussions about guys that were on the team, guys that we played against. Even when I moved on to Buffalo and Atlanta, we always had those conversations of like, hey, what do you think about this player? What do you think about this team? How often do you find yourself now going and talking to, a rookie or a second-year player and saying, hey, like I saw you played against this guy in the draft coming out this year. What did you think about him in preparing?
Yeah, we, especially if it's guys that they've played with in college or played against, we always try to pick their brain. Absolutely. And even, guys that even if they just crossed over with a guy here and there, like how was he? Did he work hard? Was he a good teammate? Does he love football? Like those things are, to me are really important. So yeah, I still, I don't do it with everybody because obviously they have to kind of get to know you and you get to know them a little bit. But when you develop that relationship with them, like it's invaluable finding out what other players think of guys that they've played with or played against. I think it gives a really like a layer that you're not going to get off film a lot of the time.
Right.
So yeah, I still do that to this day. We do it not only with how they play on the field, but also like, how are they as a teammate? How are they, how do they work? Are they going to fit into our culture and what we're trying to do? All that sort of stuff. They'll be honest with you because they want, at the end of the day, all players want is other good players around them. Really.
No doubt. They want to win. Yeah.
They're going to be honest with you. Yeah, absolutely.
It's really, I do a lot of this because, I'm bored during the off season, but watching, it doesn't matter if it's defensive ends or whatever, but linemen, when they face the really good pass rushers in college, I just can't wait to see those matchups and everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times as you watch them, they hold true in their matchups in the pro game too. I mean, I see it all the time, but you've been 16 years. And just think how the NFL has changed. The game is spread out more. The receivers are ridiculous coming out in the draft now. Now linebackers are, I don't know what size. They're years ago they'd been strong safeties, but now the inside linebackers are so small.
I don't know. I would say the Jets are one of the few teams though that still kind of hold true to a little bit more of an old school middle linebacker look than some other teams are going out there.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I mean, the speed and the length of all these guys it's so much different than I would even say offensive linemen. I mean, they were always big, but like there weren't guys that can run and jump like a lot of the offensive linemen can, now that are coming out. So it's just it's a whole new like level of athlete in a lot of ways, And the college game is so different now too that I think these guys it's also a whole new learning curve and developmental for them too. As gifted as they are, it's very different.
Well, and quarterbacks too. Come on, it's ridiculous now. Matt's over there throwing with kids in the 7th grade, and I go over there and watch him and go, "What grade's he in? Is he like a junior in high school?" And it's everything is so advanced compared to many years ago. It's hard to believe. It really is. So
no, you're right.
But it's great.
I mean flag football and 7-on-7, I think, has really accelerated how the skill positions alone have played the game, and just developing that hand-eye and just playing catch more than ever, right, than the generations before that. So I think flags is a huge part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For you, Greg, just talk about your commander-in-chief, Joe Douglas. How is it working for him and how's it been, being – obviously, in the ranks in his army here for the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, Joe's awesome. I mean, he's a great person. He's a great leader. He's the type of guy that, like, when you come in each day, you want to work for him and you want to work with him. And he's really collaborative, and he's allowed not just me, but a large group of us to like really have a front row seat as to what it's kind of like when you're in that chair,
Right.
And he's a great football guy. He grew up obviously in the Ravens organization,
right? Went
to the Bears for a year and then the Eagles. So he's had success wherever he's been. And, I love picking his brain, just sitting and watching film with him. Those are some of the coolest times, that you have just talking football really. So, but he has a clear vision for how he wants it to look, what he wants the identity of the team to be. And, he's does a great job of delivering that to our group. So we really know kind of what we're looking for and what the message is. And, between him and Coach Sala, what we've been able to develop between our personnel staff and the coaching staff, I've been here for, like you guys mentioned, 16 years, like that cohesion that we have between those two groups is the best that I've been around. And that's really credit to him, to Joe, and to Coach Sala, because they've allowed us that opportunity to just like immerse ourselves with each other and know exactly what we're talking about each time. And, we speak the same language as our offensive staff and our defensive staff. And I think it just leads to great communication and ultimately great decisions.
Well, in case people out there don't know Joe Douglas, I'll just phrase it this way. He could go out there and put his hand on the ground and protect the quarterback. He's a pretty big dude. I mean, that's the first thing I see. I've met him only a few times. I meet him, I go, damn, he's thick. Oh, shoot. I forgot my question. I was even going to ask you. So here's the other. So we talked a lot about quarterbacks, but we think we judge them and we kind of know and all that. You're in that category too. You do it. So tell me the first or second time after a couple of days when you went out on the practice field, and I know you were watching Aaron Rodgers. And so what was your first initial in-person thought about watching him throw the ball?
I mean, I've seen a lot of what I think are really good throwers over the years, not just in practice with us and at other games. We've played against all these guys, the first time that when you watch him just in warmups and it's like, that's ridiculous. Like the ball, like the noise that the ball makes, you're like, what is that? And then you're watching him just move around and he's not even set. There's nothing, it's crazy. And then when we started getting into practice and you see him like let go of these throws, I always thought, okay, this is elite level arm talent, or this is when I've seen other guys, like now I've seen him, I know what really truly rare generational arm talent looks like. I've never seen anything like it before.
Has seeing him now skewed the way that you evaluate these young quarterbacks coming out of the draft?
Well, look, like you have to realize, like between him and Mahomes and some of these other guys, like not everybody can do those things. It doesn't mean they're not going to be really good players.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to judge guys against generational like physical talents. So. But yeah, look, if you love quarterbacks and you love guys throwing a football, like I could watch him throw all day. It's incredible.
When you got long arms and the hands the size of two humans, it makes it easier to throw the football. Listen, I was up in Green Bay. It was his third year at their training camp. And I'm talking to Ted Thompson, who was the general manager or whatever they call him up in Green Bay. And I remember going, wow, what a throw by Brett Favre. And then I went, oh my God, that's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing, and of course, we all of us know that he changed so much from college. Jeff Tepford was his coach, who just resigned because of health reasons out of Fresno State, but taught him to hold the ball different, do it a little different and all that. And then he just turned into a different guy, and did it his way. And man, I went over and threw with a couple young kids the other night, and I took pictures of Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, like 4 different quarterbacks, and showed them. I said, everything I've been telling you, look what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it was shots of them being in perfect position to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And Aaron was one of those guys. I had a great picture of him.
Yeah.
So
no, he's a machine when he throws it. It's incredible to watch. It really is.
Yeah, and Tyrod, he can spin it now too. So both of them in the room, that's another thing too. Just good for Jordan Travis, man. Like if you can improve your throwing mechanics by being around those two guys, it's not a good combination. Like you gotta learn something from those two cats and the way that they throw the ball.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Jordan Travis is going, what the hell?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
The first couple of days, he's got to be, wow, this is different. Of course, everything's different, but when you see quarterbacks like those two throwing the ball, man, not that it puts pressure on you, but it, I think, will motivate you to try to get a lot better. That's for sure.
Yeah,
damn right.
For sure.
All right, so now, Greg, we'll wrap it up here in a minute. Just want to, have a few closing questions for you, or just really one or two, honestly, but just, you've been at this a long time now. You get the opportunity one day, and we hope so too, because we're huge fans of you and your family and everything like that, and the way that we just go back with our football family, as we say, right? What's Greg Nejmeh going to do as a general manager? What's one of your main focuses for building a team? You've kind of seen it now 2 or 3 times in the Jets facility, different approaches to the same task. How would you approach, I guess, building that team into what you want them to look like and play like?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you're ever given that opportunity, if I'm ever fortunate enough to have that, like each situation,
brother, you will,
is obviously going to be a little different, right? So you have to kind of like gear it towards whatever situation you're going into to an extent. But I think at the end of the day, like the things that win in the NFL are scoring points and rushing the passer. And like if you leave it to those 2 things, having a quarterback, weapons, and someone that can protect them, and then if you get a lead, you can rush the passer and really kind of disrupt things a lot for them. Like you're going to have a chance in a lot of games. And so I think the way the rules are, the way a lot of things are set up now, like just trying to be elite in those 2 areas, scoring points and rushing the passer, like you're going to have a chance, I think to win a lot of games. I think the most important thing though is like whatever the identity is that you want your team to look like is to stick to it and to just have a discipline to how you want it to look, and like I said, each one's going to have a little nuance to it. There may be certain positions that are valued higher depending on whatever scheme your coaching staff has and all that sort of stuff. So you have to be able to be flexible to understand that, but how you want it to look, set the standard, and just have the discipline to commit to it, really. But
awesome.
I think the only other thing I would say in that regard is like continue, which I've been able to learn here, and we've been able to, especially with Joe, is have the resiliency to continue to stick to it. Things don't always happen overnight, and they don't always. So you can't scrap your plan or change your thoughts or your principles just because it didn't work out right away. Try to learn from it where you can, but stick to the main theme and keep the main thing the main thing.
Ned's really well said. Bill Parcells, who I still talk to this day, but he believed in this. He had what he wanted his players to look like, prototypes, I guess you would say. And then he made 1 or 2 exceptions. And somebody said something to him about a player one time. He goes, "Oh, if you start taking, next thing you know, you got a team full of exceptions."
Right.
And so he would sometimes in the draft, or, I'd hear the stories. It was this guy, and they couldn't make their mind up. And he'd say, "Take the bigger one." That was it.
Yeah.
Let's just take the bigger one.
Sure.
And of course, that was the style of the league. And maybe it's not the same now, but it's a great thought. You just can't, you got to have like you said, the overall look of your team.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
I just think one thing when I see them.
They're always big, physical. Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. And I think, really a cool thing too, that even just talking with you, Nedge, and even the discussions that I've had with Big Phill before this, Big Phill shares the story about, one of the drafts there late in the 80s. They got a great defense, and he's thinking, all right, they're gonna start drafting some offensive players. And sure enough, he checks it out, and what they draft, like 6 defensive players in a row.
We had 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, and I was down, and we were away for a few days.
Yeah,
you were with us. Well, let's see. I don't know. You might not have been there. I don't know how. Whatever.
I was in the waiting room. Yeah.
You might have been in the waiting room. Yeah, whatever. But I kept going. Okay, the 2 first rounders. All right, defense. It's okay. We got 3 or 2 second rounders. Oh, more defensive players. I left, and then I came back. To see the final. What happened? And all 6 were defensive players. And quite honestly, thank God, Ned's, because we won the Super Bowl that year.
No doubt.
Yeah, it worked out well. But I like that correlation because here, Greg, Joe, Douglas, the boys, they wanted to improve the offensive line. The draft came along, had another great offensive line still on the board. They took it. They doubled down on that position. And I think that's something that's, obviously going to pay huge dividends for you guys down the road.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So.
Well, Gregory, we really appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you guys, man.
You the man. Who the hell keeps walking by your
everybody?
office?
I'm in this conference room with the windows, so everybody keeps walking by trying to get my attention.
Yes. Sorry, everyone's just trying to get distracted. We know Ryan Darcy's out there.
Darcy's in there. His calves are out there.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, if anyone's ever seen Ryan Darcy's calves, man, he's got He-Man calves. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But
maybe he can touch the net then.
Yeah, he might be.
He might have the same problem as Greg, actually. He might have touched it in 8th grade. That was it. But
I tell you,
Greg, we really appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate you guys.
We'll definitely have you back on if you're willing.
I'm willing.
During the regular season or maybe right after the season, just to kind of touch base and see how you guys are doing, man.
It was awesome. I appreciate you guys.
The Hall of Famer. Here we go.
The Hall of Famer. One of the original Phill Simms students. One of the OG Sims Complete QBs right there. Yeah. And maybe next time we do the podcast too, I'll share a story about Nedge trying to give me a pep talk at the field at Bosco and what I had to say for him after that. So
that was great.
Yeah,
was so good.
You know what? We're just gonna leave that teaser for next time. Because I don't want to get canceled. Not yet.
There's so many stories. I didn't even get to any of them really. So
that's all right. We'll do it. We'll do it next time. This one was just hey, Jets, you're the man. Give everyone an understanding of our background. We'll get to more of the other stuff here in another time.
All right,
I appreciate it, Nedge. Thank you so much, man.
You guys. Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
Good luck this year, brother.
Have a good one. Appreciate it.
One.